Okay, welcome back. We just finished solving for x in problem number 3 here. Just to recap a little bit, as you can see, everything is about using this idea of SOHCAHTOA. Sine is opposite over hypotenuse, that's SO. Cosine is adjacent over hypotenuse, that's CA. And tangent is opposite over adjacent, that's TOA. Using these relationships and basing it around an angle to set up a fraction or a ratio and then solve for x or y or whatever our variable is. As you can see, sometimes we multiply to do that, like in problem 1 and problem 2. Usually it's a one-step process. Other times we have to divide to do that. And then it's a two-step process when we divide. And really the difference is the x or y or whatever variable on top of the fraction, or is it on the bottom of the fraction? When it's on top, we multiply one time and we're done. When it's on the bottom, we multiply by x, right? But then we have to divide by our trig function. And then we're done. And those are the two types of algebra you'll see. So let's practice the dividing one more time. We already solved for x, so let's change color. And now we need to solve for y. Y is on the hypotenuse. Remember, we always use the other number we're given, and you can't really see that anymore, so I'll erase it. It's 18. So we have to use the y and the 18, which means we have to use opposite and hypotenuse. Opposite and hypotenuse is part of SO. So we will use the sine. And remember, it's the sine of our angle, so 37, and that will equal opposite divided by hypotenuse. So 18 divided by y. And so now we have y in the bottom. So we're going to end up dividing here. And here's how. First, we multiply by the bottom. So we multiply both sides by y. And the y's cancel on the right, leaving us with just what was on the top, which is 18. But then, right, so y times the sine of 37 equals 18. But then we need y by itself, and we don't have it yet. But remember, this sine of 37 is just some number. It just looks different, but it's just some number. So we can divide by any number, right? And so I'm going to get that stuff out of there now and just remind us that at this part, since it's y times that, we just want to divide by our trig function. And so then the signs cancel, leaving us just with y, and that equals 18 divided by sine of 37. So we want to type 18 divided by sine of 37 into our calculator. And so we will grab the calculator and we will do 18 divided by sine of 37. And we hit equals, and it is 29.9. And so we come back and we can write 29.9, and that's it. All right. So we're doing a great job here. Let's try to finish the fourth one off, a little less talking, a little bit more kind of you thinking through it yourself. And so here we go. Real quick, find your angle, figure out opposite, figure out hypotenuse and adjacent. We're going to always have to use this 8 because it's the number we have in the triangle. And so let's find x first. That requires opposite and adjacent. Opposite and adjacent is tangent. So this time the tangent of 48 equals, and it's opposite over adjacent. So x over 8. And that's nice because 8's in the bottom. So we just times both sides by 8. One step and we're done. These 8's cancel and we have x by itself. So 8 times tangent of 48 is what you want to type into your calculator. And when you do that, you will get 8.9. All right, now let's find y. We still have to use 8 because it's the number, but now we'll use y, which means we're doing adjacent and hypotenuse. That is cosine. So cosine of 48 equals adjacent, which is 8 over hypotenuse, which is y. So now it's the second part of the algebra, right? We times or multiplied up top. We're going to end up dividing here in red because y is on the bottom. So we'll times by y, cancel the y's. So y times cosine of 48 equals 8. and then we'll divide by cosine of 48. Remember, we always do it to both sides. And this cosine gets canceled, and so y equals 8 divided by cosine of 48. Type that into your calculator, you will get 12.0. Real quick, I'm going to pull up the calculator one more time. Just a reminder, you have to be in degree mode, DEG, degree. We don't want radian. If you're in radian, it's going to give you different numbers. It's just a different unit, but it won't make much sense. Gotta be in degree mode. Gotta be in degree mode. So check your calculator, DEG. All right, let's keep going. Almost done with the notes. I know this has been quite a long section. However, it is super important and also super useful for the rest of your math career. So I want to make sure we do it justice here. All right, now talking about angle of elevation and angle of depression. Essentially, this is just sine, cosine, tangent word problems. So we are going to do the same thing that we did in the last 4 examples. However, we call it angle of elevation or angle of depression when we are answering like word problems using this skill. So your angle of elevation is this deal. There's always something we call a horizontal. And that's kind of like if you imagine a word problem, somebody like looking, if somebody's like looking straight out, that's the horizontal. And maybe there's something above them. And that's what the angle of elevation is talking about. If somebody would look straight out, that's the horizontal. And maybe they're looking at like, I don't know, some balloon up there. And the angle between straight out and then up to where the balloon is called our angle of elevation, and it's measured up from the horizontal. And it's just a degree measure, right? And we can make this into a triangle, and then we can solve some problems. Angle of depression is very similar. The difference is we have this horizontal, and maybe you're on top of a cliff, and maybe you're looking at some person down at the bottom. And so our angle of depression is measured down from horizontal. And then again, we can kind of connect that far side, and there's a triangle again, and we can do our sine, cosine, tangent. So let's do one problem like that, and that'll be it for the notes. So example, at 2 p.m., the shadow of a lighthouse is 22 feet long, and the angle of elevation is 72 degrees. Find the height of the lighthouse. And so I want to kind of zoom in on this picture here. There's our sun right here, and it is beaming down, hitting the corner of the lighthouse. And so on the bottom, the lighthouse is casting a shadow. It's 22 feet long. And they tell us that the angle of elevation is 72. And so where that shadow is, that's what we consider our horizontal. And then maybe we're kind of like, obviously you don't want to do this, but looking up at the sun, and that 72 degrees is that angle there. And so the idea is, and I'll make it a little bit wider, if we look at this right here, we've got a right triangle. One side is 22 feet. We know the angle, and then it wants us to find the height of the lighthouse, and that's this side. And so we can use sine, cosine, and tangent to make this happen. Now, I'm going to draw this picture over here a little bit bigger. So here's like the height of my lighthouse. Here's the sun's rays beating down on us. And here's my shadow, which is 22 feet. And I know this is a 72 degree angle. So to use sine, cosine, and tangent, remember we picked the angle, 72 degrees. Let's label opposite, adjacent, and hypotenuse. So our 90 is here. H is going to be our opposite. Across from the 90 is hypotenuse. It's unimportant. We don't have any information there, so it's not a big deal here. And then lastly, 22 is adjacent. And so we want to find H, so we have to work with opposite, and we know adjacent. So opposite and adjacent. That's going to be tangent, TOA. Tangent is opposite divided by adjacent. So we'll do tangent of 72, and it equals opposite on top, so H, over adjacent on the bottom, 22. And that's nice. 22 is in the bottom of our fraction, so we're multiplying both sides by 22, and it's one step. H is going to equal 22 times tangent of 72. So just one last time, I'll talk about typing that into our calculator, right? We just want to type 22 times tangent of 72. So pull up the calculator, clear it. 22 times tangent, and 72 goes in the parentheses. Be in degree mode, hit equal, and it tells us 67.7. And so we can write that h is 67.7, but just remember, this is a real world problem. And so the shadow is feet, and so the height should be feet. And so really what this is telling us is that the height of the lighthouse is 67.7 feet. And that's our answer. Then we use sine, cosine, and tangent to get that. All right, we got one last part of notes tomorrow, part 6. Remember, there's a part 5 worksheet that will apply this initial sine, cosine, tangent information for you. Keep a lookout for the homework review if you try that worksheet and you're still struggling. And also just keep in mind that hard work and practice will make this stuff become much clearer. And so it's not a, it's not a shock to not get it right off the bat. Keep working. Send me an email if I can keep helping you out. Keep watching the videos and keep doing your best. I really appreciate all your effort. And we're going to get through this. So keep it up, and I'll see you tomorrow.